Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm very pleased to see that we have a full house for this very particular session, I would say, on a hot topic, which we entitled Dual-Use Research and Innovation, Opportunities and Challenges, which we also could have named Evolution or Revolution. What is the starting point? The starting point is that we have a common European research and innovation program which focuses exclusively on civil applications. And indeed, the Commission very recently has made a proposal to turn that page quite radically and to allow within that program in the future to have research and innovation activities funded, which can have both civil and defense applications ultimately. So certainly evolution, perhaps also revolution. But we felt at the European Commission that the present geopolitical situation, the need for Europe to ramp up its defense capabilities and to increase very strongly defense spending, notably through the commitments made by NATO, European NATO members, warranted to offer the program also the possibility to invest in potential breakthroughs which lie at the intersection of civilian and military applications. Think only of artificial intelligence, think of advanced materials, think of quantum computing, biotechnology, and the list is possibly endless. We have, I think, an absolutely ideal panel today to share with us their thinking on this and also their very practical experience. First, we have Member of the European Parliament, Ms. Esther Lakos. Esther is member of the so-called ITRE committee that will possibly, not decided yet, be in charge for the European Parliament of negotiating this Horizon Europe proposal. But Esther is also, I think, deputizing member in the Security and Defense Committee. Thanks for being with us, Esther. Then we have Mr. Nikos Loutas, who is Director for Innovation at NATO, and I think his title justifies fully that he would be with us today. And last but not least, also Mr. Marc Darmon, Senior Vice President for Europe at Thales, which is, as everyone knows, I have no doubt, a civil military multinational, which colleagues have defined here as a global technology group specializing in aerospace defense and cyber security. So thank you very much for all being with us. I just want to start by sitting down and by asking each one of you, perhaps very briefly, some first thoughts of yours around dual use. What is your thinking on dual use in the European context that we know today? Esther first.
Yes, I can go first on the importance of dual use. And I find it very fascinating, not just because it's in the intersection of what I'm doing in the parliament, but it's per se, as you have said, it lies very much at the heart of this current geopolitical context, where we are in this very turbulent times. And we have the war in Ukraine, and also in the Indo-Pacific we have increased tensions. And the US administration has a kind of double-track communication, meaning that there is a kind of strategic communication ambiguity in how they communicate as to Article 5 of the NATO. And many people are concerned what it could entail in Europe. And also we have to be aware that the US has its defense strategy in the making. It's on the table already. And we can expect the reposture of the troops here within Europe. It will also mean that we have to adapt, and Europe has to react and rebalance. And we have sabotage actions, if you just think of what has happened in Poland recently, and all of these are pushing us to invest more in Europe, invest now, and invest European as well. And if we focus more on dual use and not just on capability targets, we have to see that the world is running very fast around us. The US has been in the business, in the dual-use business for decades already, so we are just catching up with them, with these new initiatives that we have. And China itself engaged very strongly, so there is the fusion between the civilian and the military R&I. They have these 7 universities, the so-called G7, the top universities that they work together with the army, and they also very strongly collaborate with the Ministry of Information Technology. So we have to really try to catch up and invest in dual use. Increasing this, still it's blurry between the civilian and of course the military. But I think here we have to be courageous and to set basically the right rules for this. And one thing it's very interesting is just I read on the news this morning on the BBC that China is in the top 10 innovator according to the UN innovation ranking as to countries, and took this place from Germany, which is the 11th now. So it's a signal that we have to really speed up. So as a starter, I would say this.
Thank you very much. Very appetizing. Nikos?
Yes, thank you. The dual-use question is a question that NATO has been working on for the last 5 years. So already 5 years ago, NATO allies came together and identified a set of 9 technologies that would be critical for defense, 9 emerging disruptive technologies, quite aligned with what the European Union has identified as critical technologies. And all of those technologies are practically dual-use technologies. You will find there AI, you will find quantum, you will find biotechnologies, novel materials, so on and so forth. And at that point in time, I think we were probably seeing already change coming and change happening. So why did we start looking at dual-use technologies? First of all, if you look at the last 50 years probably, it's quite clear that the balance of innovation has shifted. And if you would go back maybe in the 70s, you would have innovation being driven by DARPA and big research military programs in the US and elsewhere, whereas today it's clear that innovation is being driven by civilian ecosystems. What is also clear, and the war in Ukraine demonstrated that time and again, is that all these dual-use technologies are really easy to adapt and use in the battlefield, and they have real impact. They solve real operational problems. They can do it at speed and at scale, and they can do it oftentimes at fraction of the cost. So dual-use solutions are becoming really essential when we're looking at our future military capabilities and at the future mix of the force. What we're also experiencing and seeing, as you also rightly mentioned, is that we also live in a time that we like calling a technology adoption race. So the one is, of course, who produces technology much faster, and that's one problem that we need to tackle. The second problem that we need to tackle is who gets to use technology faster for their own purposes. And that is why at the Hague Summit, we launched a new initiative which we call Rapid Adoption Action Plan. when we talk about dual use, and I will connect with that, we realize coming from the defense world that we're addressing a new audience, a community that doesn't necessarily speak our language, but a community that we need to bring closer. And there are, I think, 3 elements that are interesting for this community. First of all, if you look at the 5% investments, if you look at the defense targets and the future capabilities that all NATO allies have committed to implement and deliver, and 23 out of those 32 allies are EU member states, we're talking about significant investments that will be made. So there is real business potential. A lot of it will be also then to be enjoyed by SMEs and startups in the innovation ecosystems. The second is that we wanted to foster those ecosystems, but also protect them from adversarial investments, and therefore we launched 2 initiatives. The first is our Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, or DIANA. It's a technology accelerator that has already accommodated over 120 companies, and we are about to launch a 3rd wave that practically helps dual-use companies find their way into the defense market. And the 3rd is, of course, our NATO Innovation Fund. It's the world's what we call multi-sovereign venture capital fund. 24 of NATO's European allies, so not only EU, but also non-EU European allies came together, invested €1 billion over a decade, pretty much, to be invested in deep tech technologies that will have also dual-use potential.
Thank you very much, Nikos. Marc?
In fact, Mark, as you underlined at the beginning, dual technology is what Thales is doing for a living. Addressing the markets of defense and security, aerospace, cybersecurity, and digital identity. All of this with the same technologies. We are in the world of dual use for this. What is new, I think dual use is now quite old as a concept. What is new is that now deep tech and high tech is dual use as well. The technology that we use for all these markets are the same as we know as high tech in the commercial world. Artificial intelligence, cloud computing, connectivity, big data, and all of this is now used for for the military and non-military commercial use. If I take some examples, AI, most of you know what artificial intelligence is. What those who didn't know before know, thanks to ChatGPT and similar systems, everybody knows what it means. You can understand that in defense, AI, it helps for autonomy, robots and drones. It helps for aided decision and fastest decision to take when you have a threat. It helps for better sensors and better radars to detect information. And of course, internally, it helps as well to develop and code software. All of this, of course, with different AI than in the commercial world. For a lot of reasons, I will come back to this. Cloud computing. Everybody knows what cloud computing is. To make it simple, it's a mutualization of means for economy and to be cheaper. It is a fast deployment and fast configuration, and it is compatible with what we say very modern cloud-ready applications. When I say that, this is important for defense as well. But in defense, we have a lot of constraints. And the defense cloud is different from commercial cloud, even if the basis technologies are the same. And it's similar for connectivity and high-speed communication, for quantum technology, not only quantum computing, but all technologies using the quantum theory, etc., etc. So all this high-tech now, this deep tech, is dual use by nature. But of course, as soon as we recognize that it is not exactly the same algorithms, and we have a lot of constraints in the defense world.
Thank you very much. Well, listening to the 3 of you, it seems to me that there is no dual view. There is a rather consensual view about what present circumstances, be it geopolitical, be it in terms of technological development, should lead us to, i.e. to indeed embrace dual use. But turning back to the representative of the people here, Esther, do you think that our world of civilian research in Europe and also our more general public are really fully ready, fully mature for this step change?
I don't think so that they are ready, but I think that there is awareness of the severity of the situation. And of course, we have to enable, you know, the actors, especially the RPOs, to navigate in this new system of dual use. But I really believe that it is a necessity. The question is not whether we are going to go for dual use, but the question is how we are going to do that. So to find our European way for dual use. I mentioned to you China and the US, could have mentioned also Japan before. And it's really an imperative. And I think that in the framework program and in the European Competitiveness Fund, we have the right setup, and we have also the right resources. So if I think of the resources, we have an excellent talent base for research. We can also gear our infrastructures to attract the talent and to keep the talent within Europe. I talked to you, the RPOs, that they are really essential part of the innovation ecosystems, and we have to empower them so that they are really able to live up with the possibilities that dual use is going to offer them. And of course, we should not neglect the industry. Because, of course, we afterwards have to produce at industrial scale, so they should be involved in setting the rules and also in the prioritization. You have also mentioned that we have a lot of money because of the NATO 5%, the capabilities and the enablers. But apart from these political targets, I mean, the ECF and Horizon Europe altogether, they really have like 131 billion euros, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 1/3 more than the current framework program. So we are really pouring a lot of money in research and innovation in defense, security, and of course space is here as well. But I would like to mention also the SAFE instrument that member states can benefit from. And I think 19 member states are going for those loans. And then the EDIP, which is the European Defense program, European Industrial Program. So it is about the defense industrial base, how it could be reinforced and how to best use the procurement so that we enable interoperabilities, and then we can use these funds that the member states are pouring in procuring artillery and military equipment in Europe. So we have really a lot of funds and several means. Also the ECF offers new tools. Now I have to look at my notes because I found it interesting, this collaborative defense research and innovation technological superiority activities. So it really tackles the issue that you were you mentioned on who is winning the technological race is going to dominate also in the military domain. So I think Europe is really taking this very, very seriously. There is also I think a lot of benefits, you know, in it, like the shorter innovation cycles, standardization possibilities, also the supply chain security that we can ensure. So it is geared around our strategic autonomy in order to be able to defend ourselves. And I think it's just to mention the framework program, because of course we are fundamentally in an R&I environment and community. It's really, I praise the Commission that there is a self-standing framework program. I mean, the Parliament is very happy about it. That was, of course, one of our goals to ensure this. And of course, we have to find during the negotiations, you know, the means how the ECF is going to be aligned with Horizon Europe throughout the different windows. The governance is not clear to me, for instance, for the time being, but that will be crucial to take it right. But of course, the single rule book will help for the beneficiaries. So I expect that more efficiencies will be built in the system. And I would like to mention only two things now. One is that we have to take also other rules right, so that once we will be on the market, we will not face export controls. We have to pay attention on this as well. As I said at the beginning, we have to find the right European way for the dual use, which is of course ethical, and it's collaborative, because we always do it already at European level, and also that it ensures peace through reinforcing our defense capabilities. I mean, the Americans like to say peace through strength, but I would say credible deterrence.
Thanks very much, Esther. That was very rich, and I will piggyback on your description of the proposals for the future, which indeed foresee quite some means. And as you reminded precisely, Nikos, we have 23 member states who are also members of NATO, who have committed to a significant ramp-up of defense expenditure. And this begs the question, I believe, given this significant overlap, whether we could, in fact, work better together between NATO instruments that exist or that are in the making, and these European programs from a dual-use perspective, especially.
I mean, the answer is clearly yes, but before saying yes, I would also like to say that we've already been working very closely together, and you've seen that in the last years, the political dialogue has been really intensified. The Secretary General is very often attending European Council meetings. President von der Leyen was there also at the Council and at the summit. But this is not a conversation that stops at the political level. NATO perceives the European Union as really a special partner. We have what we call structured dialogues on all kinds of topics. Innovation and emerging disruptive technologies is an area. And what we see there is that each of the organizations has unique capabilities, unique competencies that if brought together, we can achieve something really, really important. So if you look at NATO first, what NATO does is through the collaborative defense policy and planning process that we have in place, where practically allies look at SACEUR's operational plans, translate those plans into military capabilities and targets that have to be achieved, and of course then attach a price tag, and that's the 5%. Through this process, they can practically, and what we do is we put out two things. First of all, the military requirements that have to be met, and that's a clear signal to industry. And then also to strengthen that, we put stronger demand signals. We intend to actually produce much more of this information and make that available as widely as possible, notwithstanding, of course, security considerations in some cases. So NATO can practically say what the requirements are and has some mechanisms that can support the implementation of those requirements. For example, when it comes to joint procurement, we do have a specialized agency that has been running for years, joint military procurement. On the other hand, the European Union has unique regulatory powers and, of course, significant funding at its disposal. And those two elements can really unlock several doors. If we look, for example, at procurement and all the challenges that SMEs face when it comes to defense procurement, the EU can play a critical role there in simplifying it. And we did a study of defense procurement across all countries, and we had some really interesting findings there. If you look at funding similarly, through initiatives like ReArm, but also through considerations of opening up research fund to dual use, the EU and NATO also have an opportunity to line up our ambitions and our objectives, which are in the end are not my personal objectives or your personal objectives, are the personal objectives or are the objectives, sorry, of those countries that govern both organizations, and there's an overlap of 23. It's also interesting not to forget that there's not only the 23 overlapping allies, but also many of the candidate EU member states are NATO allies, and many of those countries already take initiatives in aligning their legislation with European legislation. So each of us has unique characteristics that, if combined, can be really very powerful. We are also having very practical cases of cooperation. So, for example, the NATO Innovation Fund has signed a memorandum of understanding with the European Investment Fund. This allows us to do joint events, share information, cooperate, coordinate investments. We've been working very closely on Ukraine, not only through supporting Ukraine, but also on learning from Ukraine in regards to information. And of course, we have also been working very closely, and I think we can work even closer when it comes to interoperability and standards. That is really critical for defense and for NATO, because what really matters when you have a joint operation is, regardless of your technology and where it comes from and who the company might have been, is that all those systems can work together. Otherwise, it just, you cannot fight together.
Thanks, Nikos. Mark, I'd like to tap into your very practical experience on dual use, because what we do see, I was asking before about the level of acceptance in the general public and also in the world of research of that very much increased focus on defense, the spending targets that have now been agreed by many. All of this probably will be difficult as we make the efforts over the years. And of course, it would be helped if we can demonstrate that, in fact, this is good not only for our deterrence capacity or for our strength, but also for our competitiveness challenge, for the good of society, for civilian applications ultimately. So on that front, do you have any good shining examples to give?
Good news and surprising news. On high technology for dual use, in fact, we in Europe are at the right level. Let me give you two examples. One is artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence for defense, it has a lot of constraints. It's not the same thing as we know in Amazon or Google. When Amazon suggests a bad book, you don't really care. It's a mistake. When a drone fights in the wrong windows, it's a problem. So we need the AI, which is always right, always true, where you can explain the algorithm, when you can secure your user about the algorithms. You need the AI which are not able to be hacked and cyber-hacked. You need an AI which is frugal in compute capability and in space. And you need an artificial intelligence we can learn with a limited set of data, because you have millions of images of cats, but you don't have millions of images of a Russian tank. So it's a special AI. And we work in Europe on this kind of special algorithms where we have nothing to be ashamed compared to others in the US, for instance. We, in Thales, as an example, we have put together 800 engineers and PhDs in AI for a lot of the applications I just listed before. We spent 4 billion euros of R&D and T all together. And in AI, I will not say we are in the best in the world for dual-use technology AI, but I can tell you we don't know another corporation in the US who is doing more in this specific defense AI. It's the same for cloud computing. Cloud computing, of course, in defense, it has a lot of constraints because cloud computing is designed to be with unlimited communication capability. There is no threat on normal cloud computing. In defense, of course, you need security. You are on the battlefield. You need to have secure data, etc. But we are able to develop, and for instance, we sold to NATO headquarter cloud solution, which is completely at the top of the standards. And we have on air fighters, combat cloud, able to share compute capabilities and data. So we are at the right level in these dual-use high technologies. Of course, sovereignty is not autarcy. We need to be sure sovereignty, it's resilience and trust. So we need to be sure that we are able to master the content, to master our destiny. But it doesn't mean that we don't have to use or reuse something which already exists in open source or even from the US technology. As soon as we can secure that we master the security of it, that we can have proposals which are protected against the Cloud Act or any extraterritorial laws as examples. But there are solutions in Europe. I know them quite well. So we can consider that as soon as it is for dual use and for critical applications, in these high-tech and deep-tech solutions, we are in Europe at the right level. So that was the good news and I think surprising news.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all three of you. It seems that our time is up. It flew by quite fast. I'm sure that people in the room will have heard a lot of new things, a lot of thought-provoking things, but perhaps also things which put them outside of their comfort zones. So I believe this is the beginning of a reflection and of a conversation on this topic. And I particularly liked the expression that was coined by Esther, because I think it is one which can accompany us in the coming months when reflecting on how exactly to adjust our approach and to embrace dual use in the future. And it was to find the European way to dual use, Esther referred to ethics and to collaboration. So I think this is excellent to take away and to continue the conversation in the very near future. Thank you all very much for your presence, and thank you all for listening.